Welcome. Hello, everybody tuning in. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to this week's Tuesday Live that we do, but also it's the next episode of the How Change Changes You podcast. And my guest today, the lovely Michaela, who I will be introducing or allowing her to introduce herself. But just as a reminder, if this is the first time you're catching this, of what is this Change Changes You? The mission is to look at change in a different way and to see it as a place filled full of possibility and not of scary unknowns. And so all of the conversations that I have with all of the wonderful people that I connect with is all about sharing a change story, something they're working on, but in the aim to just show how we are all wildly capable of creating something, of bringing ideas to the fore and actually changing maybe quite a difficult situation into one of an opportunity, not only helping yourself, but hopefully also helping other people as well, which is kind of perfect lead-in to chat about what we're going to be talking about today. So Michaela, would you like to introduce your lovely self to the people watching?
Yeah, well, how fabulous to be here. Thank you for having me, Christina. So I'm Michaela Reaney, and I guess one of the things I'm going to be talking about today is one of my main focuses at the moment because it's fast approaching. I'm the founder of TEDxTeesside. I also have a background in learning and development, so I also have a learning development business as well that I'm involved in. But TEDxTeesside is a passion project that has very quickly taken over my life, but in a really cool way. And yeah, it's fast approaching. So 16th of October, that takes place again in Teesside. And so at the moment, that's kind of taking up most of my waking time, as you know, Christina. So yeah, it's good. I'm enjoying it. And the really cool thing about TEDx is it's a global brand. So the joy is bringing that global connection to our region, because often we've missed out on these opportunities. So it's nice to be part of that mission, really.
Yeah, no, lovely. Thank you for that introduction. I think when we connected, which was probably a month ago, maybe around that, something like that, in Teesside, because I travelled down to a fantastic event. And straight away, your energy just kind of, I need to go speak to that person. And, upon learning a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today, I was really enthralled by you bringing TEDx to Teesside, because I would say I found TED and TEDx probably, about 10 years ago. And I remember gorging myself on it. Like I could not get enough. It was this, I think it was where I was in my life. I was going through a lot of change at the time. So change in career, relationship change, like a lot of change. And what I found was that it just gave me this beacon of hope. I could plug into conversations of ideas of different ways of looking at things. So, when you told me about, a little bit around you finding TED and actually wanting to bring it home to the Northeast, I just knew that, okay, we definitely need to connect and talk more about this. So just for obviously those watching, would you mind kind of taking us back to like pre your experience of TED and kind of what led you into
yeah. Is it worth us telling people what TED is? Because I don't know, sometimes
Probably.
people might not know
Good
that.
point.
Yeah.
I know, I just take for granted. I think everybody knows
Same.
that.
I do that quite a lot, so I've learned the way. So TED is a global brand. What I've always really loved about TED, very similar to what you're saying, Christina, is it's this amazing platform of talks, basically. So you can go online and you can really find yourself down a bit of a rabbit hole, because there's an idea, there's a talk about pretty much any topic. And what I think TED have done really well is that they've built this global community around their brand. And so each year they have these big, flash, amazing TED conferences that take place in North America, so either in Canada or in the US. But what they've built around it is a TEDx community. And what that basically means is that people who are part of that community, you go through a process with TED to become a licensee, and then you are an independently ran TEDx event, but you've got that license and authority to do that from TED. So that's kind of the journey I went down after an experience I had in the US. So I think it's just worth sharing, because not everyone knows what they are, but genuinely, if you've not come across TED before, go and have a look. What's really cool about it is it's really accessible learning. And I think because of my background in learning and development, that's been always something that's really inspired me, but also made me feel like it's a really good thing to be part of, because I know we do have a lot of digital exclusion in the world, but also we have huge levels now of people having access to some sort of device that they can use, which means this learning is now available to everyone. It isn't just restricted to those that can afford or have the time to be able to go to these big events in the US. And I think that just makes it very community driven and very impactful in each of these different kind of cities, towns and regions where the TEDx community run their events.
Yeah, no, love that. Yes, I totally take for granted, because I think, you know, I always kind of think, if people been hiding under a rock, like, does not everybody know this? But I guess, again, it's just your entry point into it, and how you come across it, right? But I think now, over the years, you could probably find there's every TED talk has such far-reaching subject area, and like you say, it's a great kind of accessible way to learn something or to get inspiration.
Yes,
you know, because you mentioned before we came on live that the strapline was ideas worth sharing, so it's kind of that ripple effect. And then that's now recently changed, you said?
Yeah, so their new kind of brand message is ideas change everything, which I just think is like fabulous. It's in its simplicity, but it's just so recognizable, because these big world problems, these challenges that we might face, even at a kind of micro level in our own lives, like one idea, one kind of commitment to doing something a little bit differently, to some form of change in your life, literally can have this huge snowball effect. And everything can change in an instant almost. Not without hard work, you know, I'm not kind of saying it's all based on luck and these simple things happen. Absolutely. We all have the work to do, don't we? On ourselves, on our own mindset, how we handle and deal with change. But I think that's such a cool strapline, because it really, for me, inspired me to think, you know, those ideas, when we have people on stage in October this year in Teesside, who knows what the ripple effects of those moments will be. And we've only ran one TEDx event so far in Teesside last year, but I'm still hearing almost daily, and I'm honestly not exaggerating, from different people who've been in that room, who've connected in some way with someone, who've got some amazing opportunity to collaborate, or it really just gave them that space to think about their own lives. And hearing those ripple effects literally is the most joyful thing in the world, because it's all having an impact in whatever, you know, way we decide as humans to use that information. And I think just creating more spaces for that to happen is really important, because some events we probably have all been to, you can go, you can write notes and you leave and you never really do anything about it. You know, I've done that before, and you file them away somewhere. Or you go to an event and it's quite surface level, and although it's quite good networking, you maybe feel like you're not really getting any kind of deep learning from it. And that's what probably inspires me the most from going to TED events and TEDx, is it's that opportunity to get into some really meaningful conversations. You've got those amazing ideas on stage. So when you're stood in a coffee queue, when you're waiting for your lunch, whatever it might be, you end up in these really fascinating conversations with the other attendees, because you've got like a whole schedule of amazing things that you've experienced to talk about. So it gives you that kind of anchor as well, particularly if networking is something that you're not necessarily comfortable with. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm a bit of a super fan.
Well, I mean, you know, that's why it's so magnetic, because it's the passion, isn't it? It's the resonance to kind of go, this has the power to change everything. And I think, like you say, it's giving people the space, it's inviting people in. And then what I especially love about it is it's kind of like a co-creation.
Definitely.
Because it is a conversation, that the idea is the seed, and then obviously that gets planted and it starts to grow, and then other people start watering it, and then, you know, who knows where it could go. So it's, I don't know, it's just got possibility and kind of excitement, kind of.
Yeah. And I think that's the part of change that we don't talk enough about. You know, when you look at like big corporate change programs, or even in SMEs, and we always kind of think of it more from the fear base of the unknown.
Yeah.
And while I think that's still worthwhile, because, you know, we have to be realistic as well, we miss that kind of that excitement, that joy of change as well. And I think it's trying to find that balance, isn't it? So that more people do feel comfortable stepping into the unknown, take that kind of leap of faith. And sometimes it's good to seek a bit of discomfort. I mean, that's the one thing I will say to people coming to our TEDx events. It's not all like comfortable, cozy conversations. You know, we touch on some pretty hard-hitting stuff. We have these conversations about the big world, real stuff that's going on, because it's important to do that. We need space to do that in a safe way, but we do it from the point of, okay, so what's the action? What's the change we're going to take from that? You know, why are we having these conversations? We're not just ticking the box or you know, being quite performative in it. We really want to encourage people to take action and change. So one thing that you'll experience, because you're coming, Christina, which is amazing,
I'm very excited.
is that we do really encourage our speakers on stage to leave that kind of call to action, that takeaway for the audience of what does it mean for them. And change doesn't have to be the big, giant, life-changing moments. It could be something really little. It could be going away and doing a bit more research on the subject. It could be, you know, having a conversation over your kitchen table about your day and what you've experienced. Like that, for me, still creates those ripples of change, those seeds that you were talking about, Christina, that ultimately could be incredibly powerful. You know, I know, even just talking to my 87-year-old grandma about this TEDx event that I'm, you know, doing, then introducing her into the world of TED. And she has an iPad, so she's, you know, started to explore a little bit on YouTube herself, some TED Talks. Like that for me is the joy of it. You know, it's giving everyone the opportunity to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, as it should, because that's the thing that I think the movement that we're seeing as well societally is that kind of inclusion, or the focus on bringing everyone together, and just making everybody welcome, because, you know, it is that unity, it is that oneness, and it's important to have these, like you say, uncomfortable conversations sometimes, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow, because we need to kind of pattern interrupt a belief that maybe is limiting us in some way.
That's so true. Yeah. Well, just like living on autopilot, maybe a little bit, or those habits that we've created. I think you're right. It's got to include everyone. So although our event is a TEDxTeessideWomen event, we've deliberately chosen the TEDx Women brand to begin with, because as you alluded to in the intro, Middlesbrough's been named the worst place to be born a girl in the UK. Now, although our conversations on stage very much lean into issues that are affecting women, girls, and non-binary people, our stage is open to everyone, although we clearly do want to champion and make sure we're elevating the voices of those that are underrepresented. But in the room, we need everyone there. You know, we need our male allies in the room. We need everyone to be part of the conversation, because I honestly don't believe that these kind of big world problems or any sort of change in society can happen in isolation or in small groups. Like it is proper group work, isn't it, to do these things? So that's probably been one of our biggest challenges, encouraging people to lean into the conversation and be part of it. You know, you're really welcome. That's what I'd say. It's open to everyone. And that's the joy of TED. It is literally open to everyone. I guess where I struggled a little bit with the events I went to, because I think we touched on it and then we ended up talking about other things, how I got into kind of the world of TED. I was at a point in my life where I really, something had to change. I was recovering from burnout. I was feeling very disconnected to myself. I don't think I realized at the time that I was disconnected from myself. I felt like I was disconnected to the world and to other people, but actually it was an internal job that I needed to do. But I felt really uninspired. And so I set off on this journey thinking, how am I going to change this? Like, something has to change. So I'd always loved TED, and I thought, okay, I'm going to apply to go to one of their events, because you can't just buy a ticket. You have to apply to even get the chance to purchase. So that in itself, although I love they protect their brand, that in itself is a very privileged thing. And I think it's quite exclusive and doesn't always allow everyone to be part of that. So again, that's kind of why I ended up bringing it back home. But I set off on that journey, and then I've been involved in TED in a few different ways. So going to conferences in the US, they then didn't host a conference one year, so we did our own TEDx retreat in Sedona, which was amazing. And I just really felt the level of privilege, and actually it was quite overwhelming, like being in that room, these incredible people, you know, people telling me that they'd applied for 10 years and that was the first year they'd got in. Like, I got in first time. And I was like, wow, even that in itself is incredible. And I thought, you know, yes, I could have just kept going to those events year after year, and I have done. But wouldn't it be really cool to bring some of that magic, even a little bit of it, back to my hometown, Middlesbrough and Teesside, and to the wider kind of Teesside region, and to benefit the Northeast as well? Because particularly our regional towns get very forgotten. Teesside, we're kind of this smaller part of the Northeast, and now with the devolution and the political boundaries, it's, you know, it is more challenging. And I think the more we can do to start bringing things out of major cities into our more regional towns, I think that can only benefit everyone. And that improves accessibility and stuff as well. So that's kind of where that came from.
Yeah, no, love it. I think that's the magical thing, isn't it? Because, you know, when you were saying about, and I know we bonded over our burnout stories when we met.
Trauma
and I think
bonding.
Trauma bonding. But that's the interesting thing. I think that it's almost like a call to adventure, right? I think something has to often.
Oh, I love that. I need to write that down.
The hero's journey, or the shero's journey, which is what I'm developing at the moment. But yeah, that kind of dip. And I think that's another thing to say about change, that actually, you know, in fact, I was just having this conversation this morning with somebody. It was 2 quotes. So this was getting on for 10 years ago for me. So one of them was, what was it now? Some good things have to fall apart so better things can fall together. Like, that really spoke to me at the time, because I think when you're feeling, to your point, as you described, disconnected and just a bit lost and a bit untethered, you can feel like there's something wrong with you, and you can feel like a little bit of a loss and you know, directionless, and that can feel really uncomfortable. And it's almost like, and we can say this in retrospect, but it's like, okay,
everything's easy in hindsight, isn't it?
I know, it's like, yeah, you can kind of learn in hindsight, but you've got to, you know, live forwards, haven't you? But it's just to kind of know that, okay, that catalyst had to change, so that had to leave me, that had to end, that discomfort had to come, so that I would go looking. So it is almost that call to adventure, the hero's journey, to say, right, actually, I've been maybe stagnant, because this is the whole thing. We're designed to move and to evolve, not revolve. So it's interesting to me that that's kind of almost what took you then to look for TED, and then to kind of go, do you know what, I'm going to go and discover it. And then for you to kind of join these dots together. And actually that completes really the hero's journey, because all of those bits, you bring it home. You bring what you've learned home, back home, so that you can continue your next evolution. So fits pretty perfectly with the hero's journey.
I love that. And I think when you are going through change, it can be quite lonely because you do feel like it's maybe only you that's experiencing this, or, you know, there's a lot of kind of connections between change and potentially feelings of like failure as well. And I don't think as humans, we talk about this stuff enough. So my other kind of thought process in the back of my head is, can we use the kind of TEDx platform and be elevating these different voices of underrepresented people, you know, some in our local area, some externally, because actually that then helps other people in the room who maybe are going through similar feelings or have had previous experiences, or there's some sort of connection there that really helps everyone feel lifted and elevated. You know, even if you are in a situation where, you know, things aren't going great and, you know, for whatever reason, you're not feeling good and you're feeling maybe nervous of change, fearful of change, just having that opportunity to connect with another human being, I think can really help, but we need to do more of it. And this is why I love what you're doing, Christina, with, you know, live sessions like this, because there's very rare that you go to events where there's opportunity to do that. Everyone's often like, yep, I'm great. You know, how are you?
Yeah, I'm
fine. Everything's fine. And the thing I really noticed even in the last 18 months, because I closed a business at the start of 2023, which was brutal. And instead of just what I maybe would have done in the past, where I'd been like, yeah, I'm okay, you know, move on quickly, I was really honest with people. I was like, actually, no, things haven't been great. Like, this has happened. I've been navigating this change and this challenge and, you know, making 35 people redundant and then evolving into what we're, you know, doing now. And then, you know, all the financial, the legal fallout from all of that as well. And instead of, just being, I guess I was just a bit more upfront about it. I didn't necessarily, you know, I am a bit of an overshare, so I think I probably did overshare, but it felt good to me to get it off my chest selfishly. But what I really noticed was at all these different events, people suddenly started opening up to me and feeling safe to maybe share what's really going for them.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting myself in just so many more interesting, meaningful conversations, building connections with people that honestly, Christina, I know categorically would not have happened if I hadn't have gone through that change myself to start behaving differently in that situation. And, you know, those conversations have led to some of those people being on our TEDx stage, to supporting the TEDx mission, to doing other things with me, you know, and or even just great connections and relationships have come from it. So I do think if we talk more about the other side of change, the joyful side of change, it's not necessarily easy work. I think there's still, I mean, I was, you know, sweaty palms, uncomfortable having those conversations to begin with, you know, fearing, what will that person think of me? Will they judge me? Will they behave differently towards all those things go through your head?
Yeah.
But I can honestly say by pushing through that discomfort, great things have come from it. And I feel probably more myself because of it. I think I would have felt maybe a bit disconnected again if I'd have been like putting the mask on, everything's fine, this is how you know, we behave to be professional, whatever professional means.
What that means. So, I think, the pretense that we put on of like, no, I've got it all together. Nobody has. They're lying if they have. Oh, you may momentarily feel that. But don't worry, this too shall pass.
That's
It'll
so
change.
true, isn't it? Yeah.
It will. No, but I love what you say. I mean, one of the very first TED Talks that I ever came across was Brené Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. It's like one of my all-time favorites. And like, again, still, if I hear that somebody hasn't heard of Brené, I'm like, what? Because it's exactly what you're saying. I think, you know, I think that's where, you know, definitely we connect in that, you know, I mean, when we shared our, you know, kind of parts of our burnout story, I think that is a beautiful illustration of, you know, I think when you know that somebody's been through something, that they can own it. And I think to your point, it's about being radically honest to say, you know what, that was damn uncomfortable. And actually, you know, lots of times I'm not okay, but it's kind of that old adage of being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is huge, really.
Massively. And we're not conditioned to do that, right? You know, society doesn't, you know, reward you for that. And also it's just not encouraged in any way. And we're conditioned to, like, you know, especially I think there's a bit about being, you know, a woman in business. We're held to such a higher standard anyway. You know, we have to be remarkable. We can't, you know, you can't just do a great job. Like, you have to be that next level to, you know, to get your ideas funded, to get your ideas to the next stage, whatever it is you might be trying to do. It's that another layer, isn't it, of shit we have to do.
Yeah,
exhausting.
I remember somebody recently, and I can't remember, you probably have seen it, somebody posted, she's from Dragon's Den. What's her name?
Sarah Davies?
Yes, that's who it was. I saw a post from her yesterday, and she took a very, very authentic picture of, it was like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. before she was going to get on the train down to London. No makeup, looking decidedly tired. And I loved it so much because she just said, do you know what? I think I've been looking a little bit too glamorous on social media lately. So actually, I'm going to show you the other side of getting up at 4 a.m., really tired. This is what it looks like. No scrap of makeup. Like, it's hard. And so just in case you think that I am, like, you know, floating effortlessly through life, I'm not. And I think that's what I love about this whole movement now of being real and authentic, and actually kind of, you know, not pretending, like removing the pretense to kind of say, you know, embrace the hot mess as well as the success as well.
Yeah, and I think there's this, so I've banned a word. Have I told you about this?
No, you haven't.
I've banned it from my own vocabulary, but also from my teams. The word busy. I absolutely hate the word busy, because I do think, again, the world is set up that it's like a badge of honor to be exhausted, to be busy, to be diary full. You know, it's on to the next thing, it's on to the next big goal. We don't give ourselves time to, ironically, breathe, which I know you are teaching people to do, but generally speaking, that's not kind of how the world's set up. And I get quite frustrated with that, because I think I get frustrated because I don't know what the answer is. But again, going to lots of events recently, because event season's back in full swing. I've actually written a post about this. I think I've got it scheduled to go out later today or tomorrow, so it's perfectly timed. And it's all about, like, when did we get to this point where exhaustion is, like, rewarded in some way in our lives and work, and going to these events and talking to people, everyone's like, how are you? Oh, I'm so busy, I've got this going on, I've got this going. And it's like, geez, like we're really not giving ourselves space to be intentional, to be purposeful in the work that we do. And I don't know, I don't know the answer, Christina, at all, but I think it's a conversation that needs to be talked about more, that rest is not a reward. You know, rest is a absolutely fundamental part of being a human being. And I think if you are going through any form of change, rest, I would say, leaning into that is more vital than probably at any point in your life. And I think rest is different for everyone. You know, I'm not saying you need to be kind of horizontal watching Netflix to feel rested. You know, for me, resting now is very different. Like, it's going for a hike. It's just doing, it's changing your mindset. It's doing something different. It's reframing, isn't it? And it's making sure you give your body and your mind that space to rest. And I don't know really know where I'm going with this, but I just think it's something that I really see when we talk about the masks, when we talk about, you know, how business and society is set up. That's not reward, like, that's not seen as the kind of a level of success. But I'm really excited when someone says to me, do you know what? I'm really rested. I'm really looking after myself. and I'm like, okay, tell me, like, what are you doing? Like, I need to learn from you. I want to know the details. And people are sharing things like how they're integrating business and life. They're they're changing their working patterns. They're being more mindful of, particularly for women in the cycles that we go through, how their month is shaping up. And I just think getting more thoughtful about how you can show up and how you can do your best work, but also your really kind of valuable, deep and meaningful stuff that you enjoy. I don't believe you can do that when you are at a level of exhaustion. No. So I think it's great that Sarah Davies is highlighting that, absolutely. But I bet there's a lot of people in the comments like celebrating that exhaustion, and I'm not sure that's right either. I think there's a
I think she did comment on the fact that obviously she works hard, but she said, believe you me, I was in my PJs at 8 o'clock with my kids in bed. Again, it's just that whole thing of
the reality of it.
Well, the reality, that you need to, and I think, we talked about this, and I'm having increasing amounts of conversations with women that, and men, but predominantly women, because they'll share, of actually, they're retrospectively thinking, I was burning out, but I didn't know that I was. Yes. And I still get caught out, and I live and breathe and eat this stuff and hold space for other people. But I think because our default is to just keep pushing through, that we don't give ourselves the grace and space to kind of go, actually, I need to slow down. I need to, and that's why I'm so passionate about using the breath as the bridge between this bit of kit and this wisdom vehicle, to be able to tune in, to listen to what is my body trying to tell me. Like, it's a signaling system. And if I constantly run by chase, and I can't stop, won't stop, then, well, when do you ever arrive? Like, we need to be able to kind of get to a place and actually recognize where we are and celebrate it, because I think that's another thing that isn't as common as maybe it should be.
No, definitely not. I don't even think it's in a lot of conversations, actually, with in business circles. I do think it is. Of course, like, you can't underestimate, that yes, running a business or any form of career is, you put your all into it and you work hard and and of course, that is absolutely necessary. And my goodness, like, is that been part of my life 100%? I guess what I'm seeing now more for myself personally, and I'm certainly noticing the people around me, is I think everyone's ready for change. I do feel like there's something bubbling in the world where it's very intense right now. I think there's a lot going on across the world, particularly for women and girls, that is incredibly challenging, particularly when there's conflicts. We know that women and girls are more detrimentally impacted than that, than most. And so I think we're all ready for something. We're ready for this next evolution of what it means to be a leader in business and what that looks like. And I hope, my hope is that we will see less people only celebrating the level of exhaustion and burnout you have to get to be successful, and we'll also be alongside that celebrating the kind of more heart-led leadership, the intentional leadership, the inclusive leadership, which is actually, just as vital, if not more important, to the world at large, but at an individual level should hopefully feel good as well. But we'll see.
It's not success at the sacrifice of your own health, because if you don't have your health, you don't have a lot. You don't have anything really, because that's foundational. And I think that's where I think back to, I used to be, the mantra of, oh, you can sleep when you're dead, kind of, ha ha ha.
Totally.
And how funny it was. Exactly.
I know.
And I remember wearing that badge of honor. I'm the last in the office. I was in the earliest and I'm the last one to leave.
Yeah.
Aren't I so hardworking and brilliant? And actually, you look back and you think, God, you know, there's a lot to be said for day-to-day health, day-to-day peace. And something that I've been, I guess, talking about a lot, exploring, I would say. You know, we talk a lot about emotional intelligence, and I know with the learning development work that you do around human skills, of just how important that is, the seemingly soft skills that are actually fundamental. They're not just fluffy, they are the way that we connect and the way that we operate, because we're all in relationship in everything that we do. But I think, you know, a lot gets talked about emotional intelligence, and I think my exploration, certainly with the breath, is looking at, okay, what comes before emotional intelligence? Well, for me, it's almost emotional agility. And when I think about agility, it's the ability to slow down, mind, body, and soul, to rest, to give yourself permission to slow down, to recalibrate, to refocus, to be able to speed up again, so that you can shift a little bit more easily, rather than like having your foot flat to the floor, accelerator pedal wise, and
like
then
all
suddenly,
or nothing.
All or nothing. It's kind of like, well, where's the both and can I, you know, if I need to do an afternoon yoga nidra, like deep relaxation, because I just feel overwhelmed and I just need to take that time out, and I'm going to give that to myself, rather than just powering through and like white knuckling your way through everything. I think there's some room there, or something
massively, definitely. I think, because really, like, truly, is there anyone in the world that truly does their best possible work, their most impactful, high value, purposeful, brilliant work, when they are so exhausted that they can't make a decision? Like, I don't believe that's true. And, you know, I do think we overuse terms as well. So things like burnout, exhaustion, whatever it might be, they're so overused now that I think people have almost stopped respecting them a little bit, in terms of actually quite how serious these situations are. And I know I, at so many different points in my life, have not respected or valued my health enough. A big turning point for me was when I had heart surgery. So I've had a couple of different heart surgeries because I've got a heart condition, which I was born with, but I didn't know about until I was in my 20s. And honestly, it's really bad to say, but it's probably only now in my late 30s, the last few years, that I've really understood and respected my body more and my health, and how you know, there are restrictions on my health that I don't think I appreciated when I was younger. And so I think moments like that, it does help you have a reframe, but it shouldn't get to those extreme points for us to value this stuff, I suppose, is what I'm saying. You know, wouldn't it be amazing if this is the kind of conversations you end up with in business circles, at networking events, is like, okay, amazing that we're all smashing our business goals, but, you know, who's smashing their rest goals? Who's smashing their looking after themselves stuff? Like, how are we need to bring that into the success conversation, I think.
I absolutely agree. In fact, you're just reminding me, I had a conversation. So I've been doing some work with Barbour International, Barbour Jackets and fashion, and beautiful people that they are. I was doing some work around some of their team dynamic and energy levels, right? And being able to be more mindful about yourself, you know, what energy level you're at. Because normally, you know, you don't even know where you're at, let alone your team. And I think, you know, for them, a lot of their work is seasonal. So, you know, it can be big project, big launch, you know, a lot of energy needed to sustain it.
Big highs and lows.
So it's kind of like, you know, how do you navigate that? And we were catching up, and, you know, one of the things that I was really, really pleased that they'd taken on board and that they actually practice as part of their meeting. So I use just a very simple kind of like rev counter. So I like to encourage teams and individuals to use this red, amber, green approach. And it's super simple. It's not rocket science. And it's basically, before you have a meeting, actually check in with yourself or check in with the team and say, are you on red, amber, or green? I red, I am barely holding it together. I had a crap night's sleep and I'm not feeling very well. Amber, I'm teetering. I'm like, I'm half full. Green, I'm good to go. And just to have that check-in, that awareness of where I am, without shame, without judgment, of this is where I am. As a team, you can then go, do you know what? I have capacity. What can I help you with? And then you can balance and be more responsive. Plus the fact you can actually be more mindful that if somebody isn't maybe responding in a certain way or someone's snapping at you, you can immediately go, it's because they're tired.
Yeah.
And it's something so very simple. And do you know, this came from actually an idea that I had with my sister. So my sister lives in New Zealand, so it's obviously opposite end of the time zone. And so she would call me my nighttime, her evening. My nighttime, her morning. And there was a period of time where, so it wasn't that long after we lost my dad, and my sister had gone back to work after a period of time off, but she was all buzzy, bright in the morning, and I was kind of on a downer in the evening, And so what we started doing, because we were triggering each other, because she'd be full of energy and I wouldn't be. Not all the time anyway. So we made a pact. And I said, right, before we start any conversation, I want to know what colour you're on. So before we entered into anything, it's like, oh, well, I'm on green. Oh, I'm on green. Away we go. Oh, I'm on red. Ah, you're on red. Right. And then straight away, the magic thing that happens, your volume lowers, you slower your pace, you lean in. And so you are... Oh, I think we're back.
You're back.
We had a slight, just at that poignant moment.
I know.
I was just getting a point. But yes, so that I think that's what I've learned about all of this stuff, that actually sometimes the most simple tools are the most powerful.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it? And just creating space for those conversations and, getting back to the TED stuff, that was one of the things that I really want to create, that just a different space than we have right now in Teesside, but I'd even say the Northeast generally, just having a space for some of these conversations that we don't always either give the time to, because we're like running along in our busy lives and not getting the chance to, or maybe we're just not in the communities that can have that conversation all the time as well. So in a very small way, we're just trying to, elevate the voices of the people in our local area, but also, and I think this links into what you're saying about taking these ideas and doing something with them. You've beautifully changed your initial idea with your sister and how you communicate to then impact and support other people. We want to bring in ideas from other areas. So we have half of our speakers who are, not from the Northeast deliberately, so that there'll be things that they're experiencing, they're learning, they're doing in their community that they can bring to us.
Beautiful.
And maybe that'll create change, or we can take part of that idea and run with it. And I think that's, again, getting back to change, the joy of change, isn't it? You don't have to do all of it. It doesn't have to be these big, expensive, shiny, if you think in corporate days, big, shiny change programs, and we're going to change all this, and we're going to do all this amazing digital transformation. There's absolutely space for that. But as we all know, often in those change conversations, the human bit's forgotten. So maybe if we flip it and we start human first in the change conversations, whether that's going to a TED event and thinking about a change in your own life, or being at Barber International and having that experience with you, that actually they go on to use that traffic light process with their family.
Exactly. It's
that. Those little moments, isn't it, of learning, of connection you genuinely do not know where that's going to go. And I think that's both terrifying and exciting in an equal measure, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, I think what's beautiful is that that's the application of the change, isn't it? It's the application of the idea to kind of go, and then it's the beautiful ripple effect that happens as a result, because already you're starting to think, oh, okay, I'm able to maybe minimize conflict, for example, like in the family or within a partnership. There'll be less arguments, and so the children would then go, communication's better because they've asked a question, they've opened it up. And I love the idea, as you said, about bringing a lot of speakers in from other parts of the country, parts of the world. I mean, just to have, how other communities are doing things, or let's learn from other people, and actually see where we can apply their successes or their way of doing things into how we're doing things.
I think it's really important. Like, I talk a lot about having a global mindset. It's something that I think, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work in 10 different countries, which was crazy when I realized that at the start of this year. I was just thinking, I've worked there. And while that's amazing and you have great experiences, I do think the other good part of it comes that you are more aware of what is going on in the world, and actually how much of what is going on in the world actually, when you boil it down, is impacting us in our local communities as well. So one of the speakers that we've got this year is beautifully talking about this in the context of asylum for LGBTQ plus people. And actually how incredibly dangerous and challenging that is throughout the world. But when they then come to seek asylum here in the UK, how can we as individuals create a safe, welcoming environment for people to be part of our communities and our society here? So I think that those conversations, again, I don't honestly know of another event that would give you that, as well as then a conversation about climate change in the afternoon. So it's the joy of TED literally is that mixing pot of personal stories, thoughts and ideas, the change that people have gone through in their lives to get to this kind of deep mission value that they found, and then giving them a place to share that with the world. Like, how cool to even be a tiny part of that.
I mean, that's just what's so absolutely wonderful about it, to your point. And then it's, as you pointed to as well, like hearing then echoes of those ripple effects, or what's led to what, and that this is about collaboration, this is about sharing ideas. It's not about competition of like, keep your idea to yourself because this is the only one I've got. It's like, no, because what about actually if you took that idea and then someone brought another idea and it made it even better than what you ever had dreamed?
Totally. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn to say that, historically in Teesside, because of the challenges that we've had economically, politically, from an industrial decline perspective as well, we're seen as an underdog, which can be both a drive and a real kind of, we can overcome this and all that great stuff, but it also can be a negative in that sometimes as a community, particularly in the business community, we can be quite insular and very inward looking and very protective of things and what's going on, because we have had so many times where you've had to strive to get just a little bit of the pie. And so, you actually exhaust yourself with that. And it reminds me a little bit of, when we talk about the seat at the table for women in leadership, in politics, in business, whatever context, we've all been trying to fight for this one seat at the table, like grappling. I don't mean like always competing, but we've all been fighting ourselves and our own experiences to get to that, to then find that actually the chair's broken. Like we all are fighting for this one chair that's broken. So it's almost trying to think about, okay, how do we really encourage true collaboration, true communication, true connection? Because we can't keep competing. I do genuinely believe there's enough opportunities in the world, there's enough work, there's enough energy, everything we need to do what we want to do, what we're here to do, that kind of soul work that we're all here to achieve in life. And we've got to move away from competition to do that, because I do think sometimes we talk a lot about women supporting women. Honestly, Christina, that hasn't always been my experience. I don't know for you, but that kind of internalized misogyny is a problem. And society, the way that the kind of patriarchal society has been set up, is to have that level of competition. And so I think there's work to be done there. And maybe that's a way that, again, by bringing TEDx to Teesside, by doing something a bit different, and it really should be by the community, for the community. So it absolutely is not the Michaela show. I don't host it. I don't do, yes, we're behind the scenes organizing, making sure it happened and had the vision, but it's really the incredible team, the volunteers, the speakers on stage, the community in the audience that actually make it happen. And they're also the people that create any of that change that comes from it as well.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, that's what I absolutely love. And I know conversations that we've had, that's what keeps coming across to me, Michaela, is that this is co-creation. And it's about people coming together. And it's not about ego. It's like you say, it's not about a show of, well, look at me. It's and I see that through all of the interactions, like, that we've had and been part of in different events and that kind of thing. It's, it's very much that energy of inclusivity, openness, curiosity, compassion. And those are all things I feel, and it may be my optimistic, like,
I'm an optimist onto the world. As well, yeah.
It's like,
deluded optimist sometimes.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I used to call myself like a realist, but I think I was like, slightly kind of, well, maybe that was when I was constricted. But I think it is just that thing of, knowing and trusting in at the heart of things, people are wired to connect. We are wired to work together. And I think I almost feel like we are going back to more like tribal kind of sensibility, because I think I've had some beautiful conversations even this morning with fellow businesswomen, just about this very subject, about how can we help each other, and what can I do for you? What do you need? So rather than rocking up at an event and kind of going, oh, well, this is what I'm doing, and yes, there's a little bit of what you're doing, but also like, how can I support you?
Yeah. Oh, and there's tons of that. I think that's the joy of the Northeast, because we are relatively small as a region.
Yes.
People do connect really well in that way. I think there's an incredible amount of support out there, if you go looking for it. And if you take that step to get yourself into a conversation that might feel uncomfortable at first, but actually the joy of that is that person will absolutely help and support you in any way they can. And honestly, that's been like the most amazing and really, really joyful part of TEDx, is the incredible people that I've met because of it, that I wouldn't have, right? If I hadn't have had that moment of, and it wasn't just one moment, it was a whole series of loneliness, exhaustion, feeling disconnected. If I hadn't have stepped away to then come back with something and really connected into my local community, I honestly wouldn't have been able to create half of the amazing friendships, relationships, business connections, just great conversations if I hadn't have done that. And I do think people are ultimately want to help and want to do good in the world. I do believe that. And I think it's just finding ways that when you are going through a bit of change, I guess finding the strength to have the conversation about it, because there will be someone who either has experienced it themselves, knows someone who can connect you to them, or at least you've got it off your chest. And so actually, even just that process can help, can't it? It can be quite cathartic, I suppose.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah, because it's the shame element, if you are, like you say, if you're judging yourself going through some kind of change, and maybe you're feeling like a failure, maybe your relationship's ended, or your business is closed, or whatever that may be, that perceivably is failure to you. But actually, shame only survives in the dark. It doesn't survive in the light, and it doesn't survive if you express it. And so even just speaking to it, to say, do you know what, I am struggling, or like, I am going through a little bit of a hard point. I think those that have the capacity and the awareness and the empathy will step towards, and it's just naturally inbuilt. Those that don't, maybe haven't got capacity, and that's fine too. But majoritively, and we talked about this too, I think what the gift of travel gives you as well when you are displaced is that, generally speaking, people are good and they want to help you. And none of us are alone, really. Like, there is always somebody out there. If you reach out and you're radically honest and say, do you know what, I could really do with a hand here. Nobody is alone. And I think that's the other message I want to drive home here as well,
so
because
important.
When you yourself have gone through isolation, and I definitely have numerous times, you can feel very, very alone. Even in a room full of people, you can feel very alone.
And actually, when we go through hard things, we often like isolate ourselves more because
protection.
Well, for me, it was definitely because of shame, and it wasn't. No one else was judging me. I was doing that horrible.
We do that very good for ourselves.
And I think that's something I've had to really learn and process and heal. That just someone said it to me, and it really stuck in my mind. So in my instance, it was just because the business closed and didn't work, it doesn't mean you're a failure.
No.
It's nothing. It's not you.
No.
And there were so many reasons why that I can't even get into on this, but we're so out of our control. Fighting the government, legal battles, all this crazy stuff. But at the time, oh my goodness, like the shame cycle that you're in. That I'm a failure, I'm a terrible person. All these people relied on me, and it's all the crazy kind of stories you tell yourself. And the biggest thing that helped me was definitely talking to people, but that took a while, if I'm really honest, to be able to get to that point.
Yes.
I think the other thing was, it might sound a little bit crazy to those listening, is I did little videos or voice memos and just spoke about how I was feeling, or I wrote them down in my journal and I got it all out. Like, literally the worst possible things that you could be thinking about yourself. Literally got it out, got it all out, to then say, but is it actually true? The things that you're telling yourself about this moment in time, because it's always just a moment in time. It's not forever. Totally. Like, even I thought that would last, like, at the time you're like, how am I ever going to get out of this? It's going to be forever. And it's just not the case. And I do think that by doing something different and getting yourself into different conversations, that actually helps you with some of that process, because you've got like a more maybe joyful, creative, different outlet when you're going through hard things.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I know the talk that I did recently, that I know you were there supportive, was this whole piece around, when we go through change, we naturally then do shrink into ourselves. So it's that heavy energy where we become constricted, but because it's protection mode. But then that's when we can be the most judgmental with ourselves. And I think what I've learned, and this is why I'm so passionate about the embodied stuff as well as the mind stuff. Like, just last weekend, I spent the weekend doing blues dancing at a blues weekender. And it was absolutely amazing. Live music. And do you know what I saw? That was an inclusive community of what I would say is like ageless people. There were people in their late teens to people in their 80s, all in one room, enjoying the music, moving. And I actually ended up having some quite deep conversations with people who had maybe gone through a challenging time, and actually the fact that they may have been going through a particularly challenging time, but then actually brought themselves out into the community, and especially one where they are moving their body, that's been part of their healing. because actually,
That's so cool.
as I talk about, emotions are energy in motion. So move your body, because that's going to help you move through whatever it is you're going through. And obviously, at the time when you are at most in the middle of it, you know, it's hard to do that. You don't really feel like dancing, probably. But if you just kind of baby steps, and it could start with a walk outside, it could then go on to other things. But I think just to know that you are all of these emotions, and you can feel a hard emotion and a joyful emotion at the same time.
Yes, that is so true. Like we always have this envision of like things, I'll feel like this when, or things will be better when, but the craziness of life is that you can literally experience all the emotions in one thing, can't you? And I think that was the thing that really always resonates with me that you're talking about, is that movement bit. I never thought about that before, but when I think about those voice memos I was sending myself, or the videos, I was always walking when I was doing them. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was kind of maybe a bit of an outlet for me to get things out, like walk and express it myself at the same time. But I didn't think about that until you just said it. So I think that's really fascinating. We're quite hard on ourselves, aren't we, as humans? We do give ourselves a hard time.
Yes. So we need to ban the word busy, and then we need to bring in more self-compassion. That's what we need to do.
That sounds amazing.
Well, we're fast approaching an hour. I could talk to you all afternoon, Michaela. I kind of feel like we need to do like other versions, other conversations, to go in deeper to other spaces. But thank you so much for, you know, sharing the story behind kind of, you know, and the reason as well. I think the purpose, and I think many people are often curious of like, oh, well, how did this become a thing? Like, where's this come from? Because I think we're all seeking a bit of meaning and purpose. And if we can be part of something that is meaningful, then that for me just fills my cup up. So I am super excited to just be in the immersion of this beautiful energy that's going to be created in October. So where can people get their tickets and find more out about
it? So the best places to find out about our event are LinkedIn or Instagram. We also have a website, which is TEDxTeessideWomen.com. So yes, if you're looking for us on Instagram, the handle is @TEDxTeesside. And if you search on LinkedIn, TEDxTeessideWomen, our page will pop up, and you can find out all about the speakers, what we have planned for the day, because it isn't just speakers, there's other experiences throughout the day. And also, they'll just learn a little bit more about our community as well, and what some people have said when they attended last year. So yes, we're starting small, we're building each year. So this year we've got kind of double the amount of people we had last year, which is super cool. And, you know, really the other part for me is that eventually we will have other brands within this TEDx kind of brand within Teesside. So I'd love to do a TEDx Youth, and I'd love to do a TEDx Standard event. So anyone listening who might be interested in helping make those things a reality would be awesome too.
Yeah, no, I love that. Absolutely. Well, yes, we will make sure that those links are in the comments in all of the places.
Oh, thank you.
And if anybody has any questions, then please do reach out to myself and Michaela, and we will hook you up. But yes, thank you again. And if anyone listening is going through any particular kind of change, needs any support, wants to comment, wants to connect, please do. We love hearing from you. We're all in this together, this thing called life. So you stay put, Michaela, and I shall say goodbye to the lovely people
watching. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome.